Our group has been around for 20 odd years. To date, most of our citizen science been more reactive, and so going out and looking at breaches in the past. That changed in August 2023 when we actually did a tree sit action in Talaganda State Forest, and we noticed following that on the harvest plan there was one greater glider den tree that forestry had identified in about 1,200 hectares of forest. And looking at the rules, it's hang on, they're actually meant to look for and identify and protect the dens. And we knew from the past that Talaganda is a stronghold for greater gliders. So we talked to the EPA about that, and they went out and did a on-ground survey and actually found a dead glider, and then issued a stop work order, which is for 40 days, on 2 logging operations in Talaganda. They then did another 3 other stop work, continuations of that stop work order. During this time, we started talking with a legal team, and one of them was Jonathan Corman, who did a lot of the Victorian stuff. And then in November, I found they started in logging this place called Flat Rock, and I noticed that forestry surveys from 6 months before had identified, they'd seen greater gliders in the area, and yet again there was not one den tree on the harvest plan. So we went out there and an hour after sunset we found a den tree. So this was beautiful. We actually married citizen science with direct action, and we set up a tree sit the next morning for the loggers, and the EPA actually did step in and issued a stop work order on Flat Rock, which again was also extended a second time. So we thought with this we're on a bit of a roll, and did some surveys up north. Unfortunately, I don't know, the EPA lost their nerve, and so didn't do the same thing up north. And all this time, while this was happening, they were actually, I suppose, negotiating with forestry on changing the rules. As I said, when we're talking to our legal team, the citizen science at the moment hasn't played much of a part in the case, but it will in the future. We filed in January last year a case against forestry, basically pretty similar to the Victorian case, that they were failing to identify and protect greater glider den trees. It was only 2 or 3 weeks after filing we were in court and going for an injunction while the case was heard, and unfortunately the judge dismissed our case straight up, saying we didn't have standing. Now, the rules do take away what's called open standing, where anyone can take forestry to court. We were arguing that they don't take away what's common law standing, which is anyone with a special, or groups with a special interest. The judge actually said that third parties with a special interest can take forestry to court, but she didn't think our 20 odd years of doing forestry stuff was a special enough interest. So we actually appealed that decision, and the three judges in this Court of Appeal again agreed with the lower court judge that third parties can take forestry to court, and that we did have a special interest. At that stage we thought, great, we can actually go back to the Land Environment Court and hear the case, but then forestry appealed to the High Court. And it was just last Wednesday we had our day in the High Court, where, as I said, forestry is trying to say that 4 judges have got it wrong, that third parties can take forestry to court. So that's, yeah, the 5 judges in the High Court are now thinking about that, and we'll get a decision, yeah, any too long. Could be a month or several months. So, pretty confident we'll win. Anyway, as I said, well, it came out around the Flat Rock time that forestry were meant to be looking, doing what's called their broad area habitat searches. Turns out they were doing those surveys during the day, and of course greater gliders are nocturnal, so you're not going to find a greater glider. And for it to be declared a denture, you actually have to see the glider leaving or entering the hollow. So again, during the day, that's definitely not going to happen. So the existing rules were under their broad area habitat search for gliders. Then they, in beginning of February, was rushed because of our court case lodging. They changed the rules, or brought in what's called a site-specific biodiversity condition. And at first, they tried to just remove the need to survey at all. We were able to generate enough media, they actually put that on hold and thought about it for another week, and then came up with a new version, straight away SSBC version 2, that said for every 100 hectares, they have to do a 1 kilometre of transects. So those red lines are the transects they did. In the yellow is the logging area. Now, assuming you can see 50 metres either side of the transect, that's what that looks like. That's about 1/10 of that area is that they have to look in and protect, find gliders and protect. Of course, as you can see, the bottom left one, half of the area is outside of the transect's right on the border, so half the area is not going to get logged. So, in this instance, the figure, I think it's 92 hectares. The transect length is 9.2 or 920 metres. That would equate to 9.2 hectares they've looked at instead of the 90 out of the 92. But reality, with taking off half of that transect and the fact that you don't see 50 metres either side all the time, you're probably down to about 5 to 7% of the areas being surveyed. One of the first areas we got their data from, and this is back in Talaganda. All the bright colours are sort of exclusion areas, and the blues like streams and that. I'll point out the light blue circles. They actually did find, in this instance, they found 5 dens, which was amazing for forestry. But we went in there for, quite a few nights over the next month or so, and we turned that map into that. So the pink ones are our dens. The little green ones, during this time, EPA changed the rules again to version 3 of the SSBC, which meant they could find any sightings got a 25 metre zone. So that's the little green sort of forestry sightings, exclusion zones. Actually, and before they changed that rule was the SSBC version 2 said they had to start each transect within an hour of sunset, i.e. when you're likely to find gliders coming out. We found in May that they would do the first transect, maybe the first 2 transects in that time, but then they just keep doing transect after transect, and so in some areas they were starting a transect at midnight, and of course you're not going to find a glider entering or leaving a hollow, it's already out and feeding. So we documented all these breaches to the EPA. They sort of sat on it for 3 weeks and then changed the rules to make it that they don't have, they only have to start the first one within an hour, and brought in this extra thing for the 25 metre for the sightings, because that's all you're going to, as the time goes on, you're only going to see them rather than see them in their dens. But of course 25 metres is, considering their range is approximately 3 hectares. So you're talking about 100 metre diameter, 100 metre radius circle. 25 metre radius, and even the dens at 50 is only a small part of their actual home range. So after submitting that to forestry, we heard from the EPA that they decided it was all going to be too hard to log that area, and so they've actually taken that off the schedule. So that gave us hope to keep on doing that. So just then last year they went to a place called Badger, which was the forest where our group, Southeast Forest Rescue, was formed back in 2001.
Are you talking about the far south coast?
Yes, south,
Okay.
yeah. So Badger is just sort of east of Cooma. Tallaganda is just east of Canberra, I suppose. So again, forestry actually did find 2 dens and a heap of sightings. That's den there, and all the red or pink dots are their sighting exclusion zones. Again, we went in there for it was probably about 15 nights all up, and we turned it into that. And again, we where there's no dens, we haven't actually looked, so there are dens in those other areas too, no doubt. They actually commenced that operation while we were doing surveys. They brought the machines in. One night, Andrew Wong, who works for the Wilderness Society, was out there by himself, and in that area down there, he actually found a koala. And so, again, the koala on the south coast requires a site-specific biodiversity condition, so they forestry said they won't actually start logging the machines, they just brought them in and parked them. And we hadn't submitted all these sightings yet to forestry, and then so we dumped that on them, and after about 2 weeks they pulled the machines out saying it's all too hard. So there's another win. So as I said, rather than our fun but rat baggy tree sit stop work actions, they only stop work for a day. This is actually protecting whole compartments, several hundred hectares. So we're hoping that actually continues. We're currently working on a Tuggelow State Forest, and Phil over here has been out there with the crew. Again, that's forestry's original harvest plan. That's from April last year. Just 2 dens, there and there. And following the SSBC version 3 coming in, they redid surveys. They found a few extra dens, so they got up to 9 dens. And then with their sightings, that's what that looks like. And then following our surveys, which are still ongoing, it now looks like that. So the figures are, nine dens for forestry, 71 dens for us, and going up. There's, in fact, there'll be a crew out there tomorrow night, getting more. Now, last year we found, beginning of last year, a bunch of dens in Styx River State Forest, which is east of Armidale. That's a sort of satellite picture of this little patch of dens. The two on the right, well, that one there is the first one we found, and that log dump was already there. There's a SNIG road that sort of went through the exclusion. So that they're being investigated over that, but and which they knew about the other dens. We thought they were protected, or going to be protected, like the EPA and forestry were notified. In, I think it was July, I was looking at, just cruising the area with satellite, latest satellite image, and that's what it looked like then. And as you can see, basically all the 9 over that group, might be a bit hard to see, but you can tell it's been logged. They've been through there. So we went in on the ground, and sure enough, every single exclusion zone had some impact. Several of them, a lot of them, most of the area was cleared. So again, it was reported to the EPA. They are investigating. I'm currently writing an affidavit that hopefully will be used in the court case against them. So yeah, that's I suppose a sad story, because we found them, thought they were going to be protected, and forestry just ignored it and smashed them. So their last fine was for $300,000, and reading what they did for that as compared to this one's got to be in the $1 million mark, hopefully. When it eventually gets to court, sadly the EPA takes about 2 years from the time of the event or being notified to do the investigation. I was just talking with Muzz before, like how do the police charge murderers in less time than that? Like, and it's beyond reasonable doubt, so it's the same bar of proof, and yet it takes the EPA 2 years to investigate. Then it takes 2 years to go through the court system. So we're talking about 4 years down the track that finally forestry might get a fine. Anyway, after talking about bad stuff, I just got a few little, this is what it's all about. They've got to be the cutest critter in the forest, I reckon. So that one is the first one we found in Talaganda, that little guy. You get various colours, they're all got personality. How do I get this to play? Oh, there we go. We actually engaged drone people, a company called Ripper, and we've done a bunch of surveys in various forests with them. This one is I think this is Styx River again, and we actually got one gliding. Pretty awesome footage. I'll play that again.
Sooty, will you tell again drones as well?
We have done one area in Talaganda with a drone. Yep. We were hoping, when we did them, we put in a report to the EPA saying, you know, we're finding with our drone, they're great for doing sightings. They have got a couple of dens in each time, but it's really, they're only good for sightings until our sightings get afforded an exclusion zone. It's, I think we're better off finding dens rather than broad scale sightings. But it is, I suppose it's useful for showing that what areas are worth, or, you know, high density glider habitat, and which is basically all the, you know, the escarpment forests right up the coast of which, you know, Badger, Talaganda, Styx River, Tugelo, they're all in that band.
2 minutes.
And this is also the second one we found in Talaganda. We luckily had a guy called David Gallen, who's a Butte wildlife sort of photographer, and, you know, he's got infrared cameras and yeah, all the good stuff. So this is our second guy, and Gallen. That's all, folks.
Thanks.